BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we're going to be answering about that team in our August 21st preseason football preview here at Big Country Preps. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we're talking about the Coahoma Bulldogs.
Yeah, and this is a hungry Coahoma Bulldogs team after missing the playoffs last year in one of the tougher uh, Class 3A Division II districts in the region, if not the entire state. They went 5-5 last year, finished one game out of the playoff mix, but they've got a good group back this year. 20 of 31 lettermen back, including 9 offensive and 5 defensive starters. And the kicker there, too, is that they're about to get reinforcements from a really good JV team that went 9-0-1 last year. So I think things are looking up for Coahoma. Obviously, they'll have some questions to answer to achieve their goals this year, and we'll talk about a few of those here in just a few minutes. But I think that Coach Joslin's team looks poised for a very likely playoff return in 2024.
All right. And before we get going, we want to remind you YouTubers to please hit the subscribe button. Along with that, please hit that little bell and you'll get notifications each time that Big Country Preps comes up with a new video. Also, we'd like to thank a couple of our sponsors, beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of KLAX 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is For the Love of the Game Broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, give Rob a shot at 254-559-2266. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. That is Rob Durham up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge.
Yeah, and with that, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about these Coahoma Bulldogs and some of the biggest questions they'll face this coming season. And I think one of the biggest one is just what the impact will be of their new district. They're moving out of that West Texas district that included Idalou, Abernathy, Lubbock, Roosevelt, Littlefield, and Stanton, and moving more into kind of a southwest West Texas district that now includes Wall, includes Merkel, Stanton, and Grape Creek. So I think it's probably a little more equitable. Last year they had a good team. They went 5-5, but with a good team and missed the playoffs. This year I don't think that's as likely to happen. If you have a good team, you're going to be rewarded more for it. Obviously, Wall's a toughie, but the rest of that district looks like it's going to be a wide open race there. So I think that the Coahoma will benefit from this move, but I'm interested to see how it does impact the season they have.
Been a while since we've seen Coahoma move east. They've always been stuck in there with Lubbock, Roosevelt, and Abernathy and Idalou, and it's always been a really, really tough district. And they've fared fairly well out there. They've given a good account of themselves. But I like this district for Coahoma, which is going to have a very young defense, but almost everybody back of consequence on the offensive side. So my key question for them is defensively, with only five guys back, can they fill in those gaps with these young JV teams? That 9-win JV team, if they can fill those gaps in and present people with a reasonable defense, although young, can this be one of the better teams we've seen out of Coahoma in a while? If that defense performs, I mean, offensively, they're going to put points on the board. They're going to be able to score, especially in this district. If they get defensive stops, will this be one of the best teams that we've seen out of Coahoma, at least under Coach Joslin? I think it might be if they get stops.
And I think Coach Joslin expects this defense to be better than last year's was. So I think that's a positive. But they do have a lot of new faces with only the 5 returning starters. So that will be a big key. And my last question is on the offensive side. I think you are right. They've got a really good group back. 9 of their 11 starters return. But the 2 they lose are key receivers. You're talking about Billy Bailey. You're talking about Austin Perkins, 2 guys who were big parts of what they did offensively. Those guys have graduated. So to me, the big question is who's going to fill in and kind of be some of those receiving playmakers for quarterback Boyd Cox, who a junior who is now in his 3rd year as their starter, a kid who is really good. He had 30 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions last year, 2,300 yards. You're talking about one of the big country's premier quarterbacks as just a junior. But he is going to need some guys to throw to. And I think that's going to be the big question. I think who's going to emerge as kind of his playmakers on the edges. You've got a really good tight end, Landon Wells, another junior, a guy who should be a weapon. Bryce Davis is a senior receiver who got a little bit of action last year with 15 catches, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. But they're going to need some guys to emerge as kind of those number one and two receivers to give Boyd Cox some really reliable targets. But I think this offense is going to be explosive. I think it's going to be fun to watch. And I think you're right. If they can get the stops they need defensively, they could be really good this year.
Right, let's take a look at the schedule for Coahoma in 2024. We'll start with the non-district portion. As always, they will open up with their arch rival, Forsan, in Big Spring. That's going to be on August 29th. Then they'll play host to Roscoe on the 6th of September. They'll travel to Kermit on the 13th of September. They'll have an open date on the 20th. Then they go to Wink and those fabulous facilities that they've got up there at WHS for a long road trip on the 27th. And then they'll host Littlefield. And that's an interesting matchup there against Littlefield on October the 4th in a non-district game. And then they jump right into district after that.
Yeah, and they open district October 11th with San Angelo Grape Creek on the road, and then they have another road game right after that on the 18th of October against Wall, which should be a really big game for them. Then they follow a second open date, so just a 9-game schedule with a game at home against Stanton on November 1st before hosting Merkel for the final game of the regular season on November 8th. So not a big district schedule. There are only 5 teams in this district, so it's just a 4-game district slate. So it's going to be an interesting schedule for them, and interesting to see how Coahoma handles it.
Game of the year. We like to take a look at each team that we're previewing and sort of take a guess on what we believe their game of the year is. And I think this one is an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, I think we both probably have that game at Wall on October 18th circled on our calendars. That's going to be a big one, likely for that district championship. I think Coahoma will be a favorite, a clear favorite against probably Grape Creek, Stanton, and then the Merkel game could be interesting depending on what they look like this year. But that Wall one is the one that I see as being the game of the year for Coahoma in district play.
No question.
Yeah, but it's going to be an interesting schedule. I think this Coahoma team, particularly after missing the playoffs last year, you're going to see a hungry Coahoma team with a chip on its shoulder. I think they thought that was a team that belonged in the postseason last year, didn't make it. So I think that's going to be a motivating factor here in 2024.
All right, with that, it's about time to wrap up the Countdown to Two-A-Days series. Tonight's edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Coahoma Bulldogs. But before we do that, we want to remind you, August 21st, that's the big day here at Big Country Prep Center. That's when we release our preseason football preview. That's the largest, most extensive look at Big Country high school football from any media source that you're going to find. And it also includes a few teams, a few extra teams along the exterior of the Big Country. Stats, standings, previews for every team, player features for every team, photos, videos, opinion pieces, etc. You name it, we're going to have it. It is an enormous amount of material. And as Dan is about to tell you, it's going to get even bigger this year.
Yes, our coverage area is growing for the 2024-25 school year with the additions of Mineral Wells, Glen Rose, Graham, Toller, and Miles. So we're excited to see that our base 40 11-man schools grow to 45 this year. And we hope you're excited to see our coverage of those teams throughout the school year. In the meantime, we appreciate you joining us for this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Days series. And we hope you come back tomorrow when we preview the Merkel Badgers here at BigCountryPreps.com.